What if the thing keeping you stuck is believing that you need the whole plan, when really, you only need the next move? Every step I took started with one decision. There has to be more. Not proof, not certainty, no guarantees, just a willingness to believe before I could see it. If I had waited for certainty, many of the impossible things God has done in my life would have never happened. Faith moves before evidence arrives. How much are you delaying because you're waiting to feel ready? Welcome to Untrapped, a podcast for those learning to live free from fear, free from pain, and free from the weight of the past. I'm your host, Elizabeth Meigs, certified trauma-informed practitioner, transformational coach and speaker, founder of Elizabeth Inspires, and messenger of God's miracle power. Here, we don't ignore trauma and chronic stress. We understand it, we regulate it, and we invite God into the healing process. Each episode, we walk through healing, hope, and resilient faith together. So take a breath. Let your body settle, and let's rise into today's message. When you've been through trauma, trust doesn't feel natural. It feels dangerous. It can oftentimes feel naive, weak, like you're setting yourself up to get hurt again. Some people call it trust issues, but many times it's deeper than that. It's pain patterns. It's what happens when life teaches your mind that safety cannot be assumed. And when something is repeated long enough, the mind begins to believe it is truth, even when it's only survival. That is why renewing the mind matters so deeply. For veterans, you were trained to stay alert, not to relax. For first responders, you have seen too much to believe that everything just works out. For trauma survivors, trust was broken. So why risk it again? And sometimes the hardest part is this. People think because you are functioning, you're just fine. They see you working, smiling, showing up, pushing through. They call you strong. They say that you have moved on. They tell your story like you overcame everything. I know that feeling. People saw me learning to function again after my traumatic brain injury. They saw progress on the outside. But they really had no idea what happened at home or what happened at night. They didn't see the tears. They didn't see or feel the emptiness. They didn't see the battle in my mind. And that's the danger of outward appearances. Many people celebrate performance while missing pain. Even scripture reminds us, man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. So, let me ask you, have people celebrated the version of you that survives while completely missing the part of you that is still hurting? But what if the issue is not that you cannot trust? What if no one ever showed you how to rebuild that trust? And what if God can restore what pain tried to steal? Here's a truth many people miss. Trust doesn't start with people. It all starts with belief. Because you don't move forward until you believe something better is possible. Not guaranteed, not visible, not fully mapped out, just possible. Faith often begins there, in the space between what is and what could be. And life will fight you on that belief. Pain will fight you on it. Delay will fight you on it. Rejection, loneliness, that's all gonna fight you on it. Not only that, but the voices of people who doubt you will fight you on that belief. Because whenever purpose is trying to help you rise to the occasion, opposition usually rises first. But here's another truth. Nothing worth doing ever comes easy. That doesn't always mean something is wrong. Sometimes it means that you're in a process. Seeds struggle before they break through the soil. Pressure often precedes growth. After my accident, everything I thought my future was changed. I was chasing dreams of being a singer. That was the identity that I knew. Then I lost my voice. I couldn't speak in full sentences for months. And when my voice did return, that effortless soprano with the natural vibrato, well, that was all gone. The thing that I thought defined me was no longer there. Can you imagine losing the very identity you built your future on? And maybe you can. Maybe you're experiencing that same thing. But that's where many people quit. When what they built life on gets shaken. But sometimes God will allow what you leaned on to fall so you can discover who you really are beneath it. But even there, when I felt undeserving of life, when I felt behind, when I felt shame and rejection surrounded me, there was something stronger than the darkness. The Holy Spirit kept reinforcing one truth. You cannot stop. You have to keep going. I have a plan for you. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. I didn't know what was on the other side of that pain, that heartache, that loss. But I had just enough belief to take the next step. And many times, that's all you need. Not full trust, just enough belief to move your foot forward while God handles what you cannot see. That's how many miracles begin. Not with certainty, but with obedience. So let me ask you, what if the next step in your life doesn't require certainty, only willingness? Because willingness may move your feet forward, but honesty is what frees your heart. You can take steps while still carrying wounds. You can keep functioning while still hiding pain. But sooner or later, every real breakthrough asks for one thing: truth. That brings us to the next turning point: honesty. This is where many people stop. Not because they don't want healing, but because honesty is hard. Because if you slow down long enough to tell the truth, you have to feel what you have spent years trying not to feel. Many people become experts at avoiding the pain. They stay busy. They keep performing. They smile through it. They isolate. They numb out with distractions. They push harder. They stay silent. From the outside, it looks like strength. But many times, it's survival. And survival has a purpose for a season, but it was never meant to become your identity. What once protected you in one season can keep you trapped in the next. Real honesty is different. Honesty is not saying polished words in prayer. It's saying the words you have been afraid to admit. It is not, "I'm fine." It's, "God, I'm not okay. I'm angry. I'm tired. I don't understand this. Why did this happen to me? Help me." That kind of honesty is where safety starts forming. Because healing begins when truth enters the room. For me, the clearest season of this began at the age of 14 after the car accident. Before that, I was chasing my dreams, chasing identity, chasing what I thought purpose looked like. Then, in a moment, life changed. My voice was gone. My future looked gone. And inside, I felt dead and empty. There were times I no longer wanted to be here. If that's you right now, if you're in crisis, call 988. Talk to someone right now and get some help. Yet those were the same nights I would cry myself to sleep, handing God every ounce of grief, heartache, anger, rejection, and pain. Night after night, I surrendered what I could not carry. Night after night, day after day, He reminded me of His promise. Not always with answers, but with presence. Not always by changing circumstances immediately, but by strengthening me inside them. That is a principle many people miss. Sometimes God does not remove the battle first. He builds you in it first. Those moments did not fix everything overnight, but it did something more important. It gave me ground to stand on. Because for the first time, I was no longer building my life on what I thought had to happen for me to matter. I was beginning to stand in what was true. That I was a child of God. That my purpose was bigger than one dream. That my pain was not the end of my story. Trust did not grow when I was pretending that I was okay. It started growing the moment I began telling the truth. And that's available to any one of you listening right now. The truth you face becomes the place that you heal. But honesty is not the finish line. It's just the doorway. Because once truth is faced, perspective can begin to change. And when perspective changes, life can start changing with it. This is the stage where many people quit. It is the part where nothing looks different yet. The pain is still there. The thoughts keep returning. The circumstances, they may not have changed at all. People assume if it still hurts, well, it must not be working. If the battle is still there, they think they are failing. I know I did. But healing often starts beneath the surface, before it ever shows up on the outside. Roots grow in silence before fruit appears. For me, I was only 14. No one was talking about affirmations or mindset work back then. I did not have language for any of this. What I had was darkness, pain, and moments where 3 hours earlier I may not have wanted to keep living. But somehow, by nightfall, I would end up going to bed with a thankful and grateful heart. That was not me manufacturing positivity. That was God meeting me in the darkness and slowly teaching me how to see beyond the moment I was living in. Many people quit because they mistake discomfort for failure. Sometimes discomfort is proof something deeper is being rebuilt. The thoughts did not disappear overnight. They were a battle for years. They kept coming back again and again. You're not enough. You're broken. Nobody wants you. You're a mistake and a failure. You won't ever heal. You don't deserve love. And so I hated myself for it. But when those thoughts came, they didn't stay in my head. They came out through emotion, through outbursts, through screams, through anger, through moments of feeling completely overwhelmed inside. What I understand now is there was a battle happening beneath all of it. Not just emotion, not just pain. A battle over what I would believe. Would I agree with the lie? Or would I let God pull me back to His truth again? And in those moments, when I felt at my worst, God met me right there. He would overwhelm the chaos with His promise. I have a plan for you. He would comfort me with His love. He would bring peace where there had been torment. He would turn my focus back to Him and back to His will for my life. That greater plan. Every single time, He reminded me, I have a plan for you. You can't stop. You have to keep going. I did not realize until much later that this repeated returning, His reinforcement, was all part of the healing. Even when it looked messy, even when it sounded loud, even when it felt broken, God was still working in the middle of it. Peace was being built through consistency long before I ever had the words or the process. That is how many breakthroughs happen right in the middle of battles people just don't understand. Rejection and criticism used to crush me. At first, when people judged me or made me feel less than, I would tense up immediately. Fear would rise, anger would build. I doubted myself. I hated myself. And I would shove it all down until I was alone. Then the pain came out in tears, screams, and feeling completely empty inside. But with time, something began changing. The same rejection would happen, but the outbursts, they became less intense. I was learning to take the hurt to God instead of letting it consume me. I was learning healthy coping strategies. I was learning that someone else's judgment did not have to become my identity. And eventually, I reached a new place. The criticism might still come, but I no longer carried it home. I no longer needed everyone to like me. I understood not everyone is for me, and that was okay. I could let it go and keep putting one foot in front of the other. That's transformation. Not because life stopped happening, but because the same situation no longer produced the same version of me. That is evidence healing is real, and that it is possible even when you don't know how. What once triggered me started teaching me, because I stopped asking, why is this happening to me? And I started asking, what is this trying to show me? What do I need to do now? Rejection showed me where I still needed healing. It showed me whose voice I was believing. It showed me that not everyone has to choose me when God already had. As that lens began to change, pain stops being only pain. That pain becomes learning, becomes growth, becomes instruction. When perspective begins to shift, trust can begin to rebuild. Because once you stop seeing life only through pain, clarity starts returning. You see people more clearly. You recognize patterns more quickly. You stop blaming yourself for everything. You begin to value yourself again. Fear starts losing its grip. Peace begins to take its place. For me, it started with trusting God first. As I walked with Him, He rebuilt me. My strength grew. My discernment sharpened. And with time, I began trusting myself again. That's where confidence is born. Not from ego, from healing. Not from control, but from steadiness. Not from having every answer ahead of time, but from knowing you no longer have to abandon yourself to move forward. I've lived both sides. For years, I lived with walls up because pain was all I thought the world had to offer me. Rejection trained me to expect more rejection. Hurt trained me to expect more hurt. So distance felt safer than vulnerability. But there were other seasons where I swung the opposite direction. Over-trusting. I tolerated what I should have questioned. I accepted less than I deserved. I ignored warning signs because part of me just wanted to be chosen. That's what lack of self-trust does. It can cloud discernment. You doubt your judgment. You override what you feel. You silence inner warning signs, only seeing what you want to be there. You keep asking everyone else what they think while abandoning what you already know. What changed for me was learning to trust God first. As I learned to trust Him, fear began to lessen. I started recognizing which doors He was opening and which doors were never meant for me. That's when confidence starts. Not when people become predictable, not when life becomes easy, but when you become grounded. Self-trust sounds like a big concept, but it's built in small moments. It is keeping your word to yourself. It's listening to yourself when something feels off instead of talking yourself out of it. It's honoring your values when compromise would be easier. It's leaving when peace is gone. It's believing that even if you make a mistake, you are strong enough to recover. And it's refusing to betray yourself just to keep others comfortable. I used to silence my needs. I used to tolerate disrespect. I used to shrink my dreams so others could stay comfortable and to avoid confrontation. I used to ignore red flags because I wanted things to work. Now, if boundaries are needed, I place them. If it is time to walk away, I have the strength and the confidence and the courage to walk away. If something costs my peace, I pay attention. I do not need to know every outcome in advance. I just need to remain true to who God created me to be. That is self-trust in real life, and I believe and know you have it within you to do the very same. One of the clearest moments of confidence in my life was leaving my marriage. For months, clarity had been building. I had started looking honestly at what staying was doing to me. The constant manipulation, the blame, the judgment. Being valued more for what I did than for who I was. And sometimes that's the hardest truth to face. Not that something is painful, but that it has slowly become the normal. But wouldn't you know, God had been preparing me long before I realized it. He had shown me what respect, care, and protective love could feel like. That mattered later. Because once you have experienced something healthier, unhealthy becomes harder to ignore. Then one night, everything became clear. God once again spoke to me as He had many times over the previous 6 years, saying, "If you stay here, you won't fulfill my will. You have to go." I had a good idea where He was needing me to go, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I prayed for a sign. Within 36 hours, God answered. So I knew it was my time. I had to start moving, figuring out, making a plan to leave. He made a way for me to leave safely early Easter morning. That timing wasn't random. That's exactly why He has given me the authority to be speaking to His miracle power right now. He freed me on Resurrection Sunday so that I could be confident in what He spoke to me when He told me that I was to be speaking to His miracle power, and I could fully step into who He created me to be. When He told me to leave, I didn't panic. I left with a knowing in my heart that I was doing His will. And the moment I did, the peace I had lost came flooding back. I felt relieved. I felt free. I felt strong again. That is what obedience can feel like when God has already gone before you. I could trust myself to handle whatever came next, not because I controlled everything, but because I knew who was in control. And I was no longer going to abandon myself to stay where I didn't belong. I would get back to listening. I knew I would honor truth. I knew I would trust God one step at a time, as I had been doing for more than 2 decades. That is real confidence. He is my confidence. It's not the absence of uncertainty, not pretending that you're never afraid. Real confidence is steadiness in the middle of the uncertainty because you know who has you. It's knowing that whatever comes next, you will not lose yourself trying to survive it again. Confidence does not mean life suddenly becomes easy. It means you stop waiting for life to rescue you and begin moving with God into what is next. Because many people are not lacking ability. They are stuck in place. There's been many seasons where stuck didn't look like doing nothing. It looked like surviving day to day, staying busy, going through the motions, blaming circumstances, waiting for life to change while repeating the same patterns. And that's where many people live today. Staying stuck doesn't always look lazy. Sometimes it looks responsible, productive, busy. Sometimes it looks like working hard for everyone else while ignoring what your own heart is trying to tell you. Sometimes it looks like settling and calling it maturity. Sometimes it looks like believing that this is just how life has to be. Have you ever been doing everything, yet still feeling nowhere? I know that feeling. What changed my life was not having every answer. It was becoming willing to seek. Seek better. Seeking is not vague. It looks like asking better questions. Instead of why is this happening to me, asking what now? Instead of why hasn't life changed, asking what is my next step? Seeking looks like opening the Bible when your mind feels heavy. It looks like worship when you feel weak. It looks like going to church, staying teachable, taking one step before you see the whole staircase. It looks like leaving environments that keep draining you. It looks like being willing to get uncomfortable so your life can get better. Many people pray for change while resisting the steps change requires. Have you been waiting for certainty when really you only need to take the next step? One of the biggest seeking moments of my life was returning to Waco. I could have stayed in the marriage, stayed unsupported, stayed exhausted, stayed overwhelmed, stayed in a place where peace was disappearing. But instead, I chose better. Not all at once, step by step. Trying to find a way, meeting God at the halfway point, because it's a partnership. He doesn't do all the work. You have to move, and then He meets you there. First, a job transfer was available, so I stepped on it. Then I found an apartment that I could afford. Next, I found a place where I could stay until I could move into that apartment. That is how change often happens. Not always in one giant miracle moment, though God can do that too. Sometimes change happens through faithful next steps. Provision often meets movement. What if the thing keeping you stuck is believing that you need the whole plan, when really, you only need the next move? Every step I took started with one decision. There has to be more. Not proof, not certainty, no guarantees, just a willingness to believe before I could see it. If I had waited for certainty, many of the impossible things God has done in my life would have never happened. Faith moves before evidence arrives. How much are you delaying because you're waiting to feel ready? Maybe that question is not for someone else. Maybe it's for you right here, right now. Maybe today You're feeling exhausted, but still functioning. Maybe you smile on the outside while feeling empty on the inside. Maybe you're carrying everyone else while you're quietly losing yourself. Maybe you feel behind in life. Maybe you keep repeating the same patterns and do not know how to actually break free. Maybe you are strong enough to survive, but tired of only surviving. If that's you, I want you to know that I see you. And more importantly, God sees you too. He has not overlooked your pain, your delay, or your future. That's why I created the Miracle Power Activation Cohort. Not as motivation, not as hype, not as temporary inspiration. It is a structured process built from lived truth, proven healing frameworks, faith, practical tools with accountability. It's designed to help you build stability, regulate emotions, renew your perspective, restore your confidence, so that you can finally move towards the peace and freedom that you were created for. Transformation is not random. It can be built, but you have to be willing to choose to take that next step. I did not just learn these principles. I lived them. I know what it feels like to try to figure it out alone. I know what it feels like to hit walls and not know how to get over them. I know what it costs to stay stuck longer than necessary. Years, peace, confidence, delay, falling into the trap of believing the lies that were never true to begin with. If I'm able to help shorten that journey for someone else, then every battle that I've ever faced had purpose. Because nothing surrendered to God is wasted. Visit ElizabethInspires.com and click on the Elizabeth Inspires Coaching tab to learn more about what the Miracle Power Activation Cohort has in store and how it might help you to get back to living again. The link is in the show notes. If this spoke to your heart today, there is something inside of you that has not broken. Your strength, your purpose, your God-given identity, your capacity to rebuild. And my job is to help you find it again, to lead you the same way that the Holy Spirit has led me for more than 2.5 decades. You are not finished. You are stronger than you think. God still has a plan. Your peace can return. You just may not have been shown how to access it yet. But once you do, everything can change. I want you to remember that you hold the keys to unlocking your miracle power. In the next episode of Untrapped, we're going deeper into discernment. How to recognize when something looks right, but isn't. When help is really control, and how to stop seeing only what you want to see so you can start seeing truth clearly. If you've ever trusted the wrong person, ignored red flags, or learned a hard lesson through disappointment, you won't want to miss episode 12.